Okay, so we're gonna work on getting started. Today we're gonna talk about the books that are coming out in March. And we're gonna start with our intro fiction books, but before that, we're gonna let you know that the next Books in Focus is gonna be a little shifted just because of the spring all classes happening. So our next Books in Focus is gonna be on Monday, March 10th at 3 p.m. And I'll say that again in just a second. So the next Books in Focus will be Monday, March 10th at 3 p.m. And that just got shifted because of the spring all classes. We just have like a schedule of, conflict and all that. So with that, we're gonna get started on the new releases coming out. These are just gonna be the very quick, up and coming, instant, hold, everything like that. So first one is Lethal Prey by John Sanford, coming out on March 25th. It's his crime thriller, and it's, believe it or not, number 35 in the Lucas Davenport series. Lucas Davenport and Virgil Flowers are back and join forces to track down a ruthless killer. Their job is made more difficult when true crime bloggers are putting all the clues online, allowing the killer to remain one step ahead. Next, we have the newest from Danielle Steele, Far From Home. It's going to be out March 4th. A moving historical novel about the devastation of World War II from the perspective of a courageous wife and mother hiding in occupied France and a family that overcomes impossible odds. So this one's going to be women's fiction and historical fiction. It's going to be The Far From Home by Danielle Steele. Next is The Summer Guest by Tess Gerritsen, coming out March 18th. It is number 2 in the Martini Club series. Maggie and the Martini Club, a book group of ex-CIA friends, are back as they join the search for a missing teen that threatens to uncover long-buried secrets in this chilling follow-up to The Spy Coast. So the first one was The Spy Coast that came out last year. This is the second one in the Martini Club. Next, we have The Jackal's Mistress by Chris Bojalian. It's going to be out March 11th. It's historical fiction. A vivid and sweeping Civil War love story inspired by real-life friendship. When the wife of a missing Confederate soldier finds a wounded Yankee officer, she must decide if she's willing to risk it all for the life of a stranger in this emotional and heart-wrenching new novel. That one sounds really good. On the bottom row, our next one is Beach Vibes by Susan Mallory, coming out March 18th. When Beth catches her charismatic brother Rick cheating on her best friend, her idyllic family future with her best friend's handsome brother is threatened in this witty and emotional tale where love, loyalty, and secrets collide. So that's going to be like a nice little beach read, kind of get you in the mood for spring. Next one, I just think that's such a fun title. Kills Well with Others by Deanna Rayborn. Rayborn. It's a thriller. It is Killers of a Certain Age number 2. So it's number 2 in a series. 4 senior women assassins are called back into action when they receive a call from an elite assassination organization known as the Museum. Filled with humor, action, adventure, and heart, readers will follow this fearsome foursome on a wild ride across the globe. This one definitely is going to have a lot of humor to it and some action as well. Number 7, The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue is coming out March 18th. It's another historical fiction. Based on the 1895 disaster at the Paris Montparnasse train station, hopefully I said that correctly, comes a powerful story with a full cast of characters from all around the world that seamlessly captures the politics, glamour, and chaos of the 19th century. Last but not least, this is one of the newer ones by Frida McFadden called Ward D. It's coming out March 4th. It's medical student Amy Brenner's turn to stay overnight in the locked psychiatric ward. Right? Her worst nightmare comes to life and everyone is in danger because something terrible is happening within these walls and now she might never escape. I do believe that one came out a few years ago, but she is republishing under a bigger author, so that is why we have that today.
Nonfiction, hot takes for March. We have a new one from John Green, who is usually a fiction writer, but he was very inspired by a 2019 trip to Sierra Leone. He was helping with the human aid crisis. He met there a young tuberculosis patient named Henry. And so in this story, Everything is Tuberculosis, we'll get to hear Henry's story, woven with the scientific and social histories of how tuberculosis has shaped our world and how our choices could shape the future of tuberculosis. Michael Lewis, who's the best-selling author of a couple titles you're probably all familiar with, Going Infinite, Moneyball, The Big Short. His new one focuses on the government, the complex system that America pays for, dismissive, and celebrates. Several authors did contribute to this, and they wrote essays on different people who have interesting government jobs to shed more light on it. Lincoln's Peace, sure to be a hot pick. The author on this one did the research that led to Steven Spielberg's Lincoln movie. And when he was researching, he was baffled by the murkiness around the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery. So here, Lauren Berg is going to share what he learned about the time, the eventual peace, and which ultimately did not occur until more than a year after Lincoln's passing. And this new biography promises not just to be a history, but exposing the complexity of the ending of the Civil War. Yoko, maybe you've heard of her. John Lennon described her as the most famous unknown artist. So the author David Sheriff is the best-selling author of Beautiful Boy, which was a great book. He actually had the opportunity to interview Yoko and John Lennon together, which began their relationship. So years later now, he's been trusted with her memoir. The next conversation, no matter who you are talking to, this book will give you actionable strategies and phrases, forever changing how we communicate. The author is a trial lawyer and leading expert on real-world communications. The Ride. This one's going to be the Paul Revere story, right? This book comes right out before the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's legendary ride. Told with new eyes on little-known aspects of the myths surrounding this American legend that every child learns about in school, depicted in a thrilling narrative style. There is No Place for Us by Brian Gladstone is going to be telling us unforgettable stories of families in Atlanta. There is No Place for Us will expose a troubling new trend, the dramatic rise of working homeless people in cities across America. And How to Feed the World shows how we misunderstand the essentials of where our food really comes from, how our dietary requirements shape us, and why this impacts our planet in dramatic ways. Leading scientist and best-selling author, Small, will investigate questions and myths around food.
We're going to dig into the fiction. Our first one is Elfie by Gregory Maguire. It's coming out March 25th. It is essentially a continuation of his Wicked Years series, which is where you get the Wicked book. But it is a prequel, so it is set before Wicked. Almost 30 years after the publication of the original novel, Alfalfa is revealed in this riveting coming-of-age story about a prickly, peculiar, and relatable girl destined to be the Wicked Witch of the West. This charming origin story dives into the world of Oz and its politics through the lens of a young girl trying to deal with the trials and feelings of growing up as she navigates family, friendship, university, and so much more in this highly anticipated, like I said, prequel to the Wicked Years series. So you can read it after, because that is how he wrote it, is how it was intended. But if you want to go into the Wicked book series with more knowledge of the Wicked Witch of the West and how she is, you may consider reading Elfie before Wicked. The first read-alike we have is Out of Oz, also by Gregory Maguire. That is what is considered the final volume in the Wicked Years before he wrote Elfie. The final volume series in this series transports readers to Oz at a time when it is rife with social unrest. Dorothy returns and the Wicked Witch of the West is dead. Filled with complex characters and twisting plot lines, Maguire ties up the Wicked Years nicely in this heartbreaking but fun conclusion to his retelling of L. Frank Baum's beloved Oz, which was originally children's novels. The next read-alike is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is going to be if you like more of the coming of age aspect of Elfie versus the world of Oz. A popular Greek mythology retelling featuring Circe, daughter of Helios, a peculiar child that turns to the world of mortals for companionship, where she discovers she has the power of witchcraft. Afraid of her power, Zeus banishes Circe, and she must decide if she belongs with the gods from whom she was born, or the mortals who she's come to love, in the story of a powerful outcast hero. So depending on what you like about Elfie, this will determine which one you like more. If you like the world of Oz, you'll like Out of Oz and the Wicked Year series. But if you like the more coming of age story of a woman, then you're gonna wanna read Circe.
Next on our list is A Map to Paradise by Susan Meisner. This one will be available on the 18th of March. It is historical fiction, and it takes place 1956 in Malibu, California. And our protagonist, Melanie, is a young actress who has been blacklisted, and that means her life is on hold. She spends most of her time in her house, and the only regular contact she has other than her cleaning lady is her neighbor, Elwood. And Elwood is agoraphobic, so they only speak through the window, because he does not leave his house. And one day, Ava, the housekeeper, and Melanie noticed that Elwood's sister-in-law is out in his garden digging around, which they had not seen before. And after that, they never see Elwood again. So, yeah, they wonder where he could be. And they uncover secrets and secret alliances, and that leads all of them to make a fragile pact that holds them together. So this is a novel of finding your home and belonging, choosing your family, topics such as that. For read-alikes, I chose Susan Meisner's The Nature of Fragile Things from 2021, and that is about the San Francisco earthquake. Also, very strong women characters, and about the relationships that they form as it's necessary for their survival. Also, Kate Quinn has a new book, The Phoenix Crown, and that is about a down-and-out singer who's trying to revitalize her career, and she meets an embroideress in Chinatown, and they form a friendship and are then offered a patronage by a wealthy railroad magnate, and he comes up missing after the San Francisco earthquake. So, fun. The Last Days of Kira Mullen. This is by Nikki French. It is a mystery coming out on the 4th. It takes place in current times. Nancy is recovering from a severe psychiatric break. She suffers from mental illness. And she and her husband move into a new place, and their neighbor is found dead. The death is ruled a suicide, but Nancy doesn't believe that. She believes that there's more to the story. But because of the stigma of her mental illness, no one wants to hear it. They don't want to listen to her. So it takes us into a mystery thriller and a forensic study of gaslighting, which could be take some interesting turns. And just a side note, Nikki French is the husband-wife team of Nikki Gerard and Sean French. And they write all of their novels together as Nikki French, but I thought that was interesting. Read-alikes, has anyone seen Charlotte Salter? Also by Nikki French. After missing for 30 years, some old secrets are coming to light. And this is described by Lee Child as a breathless drumbeat of dread and suspense. And the classic, you have to mention this one if it's a woman missing story, Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Amy disappears, Amy has secrets, and what really happened to Amy?
Twist is the newest one out from the author of The Paragon. It's, recently, like 2 years ago, that came out. In Twist, main character Anthony is a journalist. He's assigned to cover the underwater cables that carry the world's information. These cables are underwater at unfathomable depths, and they carry everything that we know to our lives. Words, images, memories, voices, viruses, and sometimes these cables and the tubes that house them break. So Anthony's investigation leads him to the west coast of Africa, where human labor is behind this technical marvel. He is helped by the mysterious chief of mission on the repair ship, whose name is John. John's an engineer and a freediver. And when sailing to repair a break, Anthony and John discover the cables they seek to fix carry news that could upend their lives forever. On this turbulent sail, they question life, love, belonging, and severed connections. It made me think of Richard Powers and his most recent release titled Playground. Readers will get to know 4 young adults while growing and their unique lives and kind of their path that leads them, and their unique abilities that leads them to all be formed together on a new mission, so to speak. They're chosen for humanity's next adaptable structure, bear with me, which is a floating autonomous city in the open sea. So the author Powers has rich characterization and is known for these intersecting themes of technology and environment. It also made me think of the Passenger series. In this one, a salvage diver is haunted by loss, he's fearful of the water, and he's followed by a conspiracy that is beyond his understanding. It's the most succinct I could get it. Finley Donovan, is anyone familiar with this lighthearted mystery series? Yes. So there have been a couple of these out, so this is the newest in a series. You'll probably jump in without reading the previous ones. Not missing too much here, but she's a fun, strong, central female character. In this one, Finley and her partner in crime, Vero, are back, and they are knocking along with the neighbor, Mrs. Haggerty. That is until Mrs. Haggerty finds a body in her own backyard and now needs Finley and Vero's help. Mrs. Haggerty is cleared by the police, but since her house is an active crime scene, she does end up staying with Finley. Finley and Vero have sworn off helping with murders, and they don't want to get their hands dirty, but they do decide they want their house back. So they roll up their sleeves and get to work. Read-alikes for this series would include Vera Wong's unsolicited advice for murderers. 60-year-old tea shop owner walks in on a body one morning in her tea shop, and she finds herself picking up the slack of the local police effort. The line for this one is, "Nobody spills the tea like this amateur sleuth." It's got a similar sense of humor as our Finley Donovan character. It also made me think of Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. This was also a lighthearted murder series. Family reunion in a ski resort where everyone is a shady character and surprise, a dead body shows up. They need to figure out who did it. I wrote, the author has a lighthearted, unique sense of humor to go along with the body count in this one.
A little more lighthearted, no murder as far as I can remember in this. So The Love We Found by Jill Santopolo. It's coming out March 18th. It's considered women's fiction, but I would say it has some romantic elements. The long-awaited follow-up to The Light We Lost, which is our first read-alike. It picks up 10 years after Gabe and Lucy's whirlwind romance. When Lucy uncovers an address in Rome from a box of Gabe's things, she impulsively books a ticket that leads her to the alluring Dr. Dax Armstrong. What ensues is a journey of love, fate, and choice as Lucy wrestles with her old life back home and difficult decisions, all while trying to move forward and have a second chance at finding true love in this emotional and heartbreaking and beautifully written love story for fans of the movie and book, P.S. I Love You. Our first read-alike is The Light We Lost, which is the first book. They don't have to be read together, but for your best reading experience, that's what she recommends. So in The Light We Lost, you follow Lucy and Gabe as they embark on a 13-year, once-in-a-lifetime love story that spans across continents. He may be her first love, but is he meant to be her last? So these are going to be very heartfelt and emotional reads. The next read-alike is 5 years from now. What if you met the right person at the wrong time? Nell and Van meet as children, fall in love, but are torn apart. 5 years later, across continents, they meet again and their love is rekindled, only to be broken every 5 years in this compelling romance. Fate brings them together again and again, but will they ever truly be able to find happiness and come together once and for all? So these are all going to be like second chance love stories, a bit more of like, is it fate? But it's going to be a nice, lighthearted, emotional read. You may want to grab the tissues for it.
This is not my style cover.
I think that is just
Huckiest thing. Let me come up with something better. But it promises to be a thrilling mystery. We're going to follow a young woman's search for her father and a young man with an impossible problem. The novel will start in California in 2016 when a father's been out sailing and he has not returned to port. Before leaving, he had prepared his daughter for the possibility of not returning, and he left behind some instructions. So she picks up those instructions and begins to follow them, and she heads to the library for step number 1, finding a book. There's another story told through this novel. This one takes place in 1933, and a young man in Vienna starts his job as a professor of mathematics. He's invited to join the Engelhardt Circle, which is a group of intellectuals, which is under a lot of scrutiny. Doesn't exactly go along with popular opinion at the moment. Fascism's on the rise, and polarization increases, and moderate voices are drowned out. There are whispers of a machine which can transport someone through time. But our characters don't know if it's true, and everyone's being tight-lipped. This novel will explore time and love and obsession and show how we could never really understand what happened in our past. That complicated description reminded me of Cloud Cuckoo Land. Did anybody enjoy Cloud Cuckoo Land a couple years ago? Okay, good. I listened to it, and honestly, the first time the book had me a little confused, but it comes together beautifully. I did not want to try and boil down an overview because it's going to sound a little crazy. The nicest way I could put it is that in Cloud Cuckoo Land, there are multiple storylines in multiple time periods, and it builds perfectly to a cinematic and climactic ending. Also made me think of Sea of Tranquility for its sort of subtle vagueness with large themes. This one's also a story of people through time, speculation on our future, multiple perspectives. This one starts in Vancouver in 1912 and goes through to a moon colony 300 years in the future.
okay. So next we have a historical fiction novel, The Girl from Greenwood Street by Lauren Willett. It's coming out March 4th. It's bear with me, a genre blend that revisits a dark corner of history. It is part murder mystery, part thriller, part true crime, and part historical fiction. So it's got a lot going on. Based on the true and famous trial of Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr in the 1800s. When a shocking murder shakes Manhattan, Hamilton and Burr must work together to solve a murder and save a man's life, all while at odds in their pursuits of their own political aspirations during the New York elections. Our first read-alike is going to be War of Two by John Sedgwick. That is actually a nonfiction novel, but that is going to give you the true story that inspired Willett's newest novel and focuses on the rivalry between founding father Hamilton and Vice President Burr as they battle for political power. Well written and well researched and containing real letters between these bitter rivals, Sedgwick dives into the duel that stunned the nation. So if you like the historical aspect, that'll be a good one for you. And then our next read-alike is My Dear Hamilton by Stephanie Dray. It's going to be her perspective of this incident, but from the perspective of Alexander Hamilton's wife, Eliza. So it's gonna be a similar story, but with a different viewpoint. Haunting and beautifully written. It is well researched, using thousands of original letters. Dre tells the story of Alexander Hamilton's wife, Eliza, a love story filled with difficulties and political scandal. Eliza perseveres through it all with strength and determination as she saves her husband's legacy and creates her own. Went a little international with this one. Young Ori is growing up on his family cattle farm in western Iceland. He really enjoys everything from the baby animals to the birds singing and his trusty farm dog. He does leave his conservative home life to go to college in Reykjavik, big university. When he leaves, his father has these haunting memories that he just can't escape, not in his work. The things that used to bring him joy no longer bring him as much joy. He falls into a bit of a depression. At school, Ori feels adrift and aimless, and he does return home. So with his father down, Ori is now helped running the farm. Family conflicts arise and Ori bonds with a stranger online. By the end of the year, Ori will have to decide which future to pursue, university and perhaps his romance in the city, or stay in the country with the farm he loves and a family that needs him. Made me think of This Is Happiness. It takes place in a small Irish parish that hasn't changed in 1,000 years. 17-year-old Noel is idling locally. Christy comes to town and shakes things up. It is a tender portrait of small community with its traditions, paradoxes, kindness, triumphs, and failures. Wild Horses of the Summer Sun is a really interesting, savvy nonfiction book. It's the story of the author meeting up with fellow female travelers in Reykjavik, and they travel to a horse farm perched on the edge of the world. It is exciting exploration of the rolling hills in Iceland, and we get to know the travelers who bond in their adventures over the years.
What was the author of that story? That one?
Bilski, B-I-L-S-K-I.
And Nicole, This Is Happiness is one of the best books I've read all year.
But
I thought it was wonderful.
Neil has a new one coming out for next month, I believe. I'm sure we'll talk about it next month.
Really, really good.
Good to share.
Which one?
This Is Happiness.
Okay.
It's about nothing and everything.
Looks like that in Plex. Okay, so we have another fantasy, but it's more of a historical fantasy novel, Malinali by Veronica Chapa, coming out March 11th. It is an imaginative retelling of a real-life historical figure within Mexico's history and mythology, the woman known as Malinali, the Nahua interpreter who helped Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez communicate with the people of Mexico. Blessed with magical powers, Malinali was labeled both a goddess and a traitor, when really she was just a young girl kidnapped into slavery at age 12, struggling to survive. Part historical fiction and part fantasy, this is a vivid and compelling tale of magic, sisterhood, survival, and Mexican resilience about a misunderstood woman. Our first read-alike might look familiar to you. It's been on our shelves for a little bit. Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. I love its cover. I think it's very pretty, and I think the copy we have has really pretty black sprayed edges. It is historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age, inspired by the author's own family history. When Lucia, an orphan, is discovered to have powers, her gifts are exploited by the wealthy and powerful. In order to survive, she will have to use all of her strength and wit to overcome the dangers that surround her in this compelling novel that blends magic, religion, and politics. Last, the read-alike is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. What a mouthful. A lush and dazzling historical novel with a hint of science fiction that reimagines the island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. It is set against 19th century Mexico. It is told obviously from his daughter's perspective, Carlotta, and his assistant, Montgomery. And they create these strange scientific experiments called the hybrids, part human, part animal monstrosities. And like I said, it's all tied with H.G. Wells, so it's gonna be weird. When strangers arrive who sets off a dangerous chain of events, this peculiar family must figure out how to survive. So it's got a mixture of like magic and sci-fi set in that same setting of Mexico and everything. Other good read-alikes from Alinali might also be Circe or any of the Greek mythology retellings, because they're going to have that strong female perspective.
The Buffalo Hunter is historical horror by Stephen Graham Jones. It'll be out on the 18th of next month. This is a story about the discovery of a diary. A diary is discovered hidden inside a cave wall. And the diary is written by a Lutheran priest who tells the story of a vampire who haunted the fields of the Blackfeet Reservation to achieve justice for what was done to the Blackfeet people. It is a narrative confessional by narrative style, and it is ultimately an American Indian revenge story. Takes place at 1912 American West. For read-alikes, I included his previous book, The Only Good Indians. He received amazing press for that book. The title is taken from the famous quote by the American general, "The only good Indians are dead Indians." Very complex story. And I also chose Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. That was genre bender as well. Romance, horror, adventures of war, took place in 1840s Mexico. Oh, Sinners. I saw this and I thought immediately, oh, Pioneers. Boy, was I surprised. That's not where we're going here. This is Oh, Sinners by Nicole Cuffey. This also comes out on the 18th, a work of literary fiction. It takes place in California, current time. And when you hear the description of the story, you will say, oh, California, I predict. A young man loses his father, and as a result, he sort of loses his way. And he finds out that his father was part of an organization, he believes, or a group, called the Nameless. And what he finds when he delves into this group is that they are a cult. And the cult is led by a Vietnam vet named Odo. And he leads with teachings that he calls the 18 utterances. And they are things like pain, but pain is all in your imagination, and there really is no pain. Things that challenge reality. Our young protagonist Farik intends to unravel the mystery of this organization, but he finds himself unraveling first. It really plays with his brain, which is what cults do. Old Sinners examines longing and belonging and what we seek from one another. For read-alikes, I chose Nicole Cuffey's previous work, Dances. That is a black ballet dancer achieves her dream. She's the pinnacle of her art, and it causes her to stop and wonder about what she gave up along the way. And We Can Only Save Ourselves by Allison Wisdom. This true is also is a cult story, and it is a story of the most unlikely of targets for a cult leader to bring into his group. And it very much mirrors the Charles Manson model of cult leaders.
This book will bury me is the chilling story of amateur sleuths online hunting for an elusive killer that's drawing them into danger. After her father's passing, Jane longs for relief from her grief. Jane becomes obsessed with true crime and starts making friends with other armchair detectives, people that are investigating from home and online and uncovering facts. Find the safety of their computer, right? Online, Jane finds a little friendship and purpose. With news of 3 college girls dying in Delphine, Idaho, inspired by true events, this news story blows up in the news. The amateur armchair sleuths race to find information, and a case that turns out to be stranger than anyone expected. Jane and her online acquaintances feel like they're walking into a trap. Reads like, I need you to read this. Years ago, Alex escaped to New York City, and she likes to keep to herself, just work her copyright job. She's kind of quiet. She finds out that her childhood hero is brutally murdered. Her childhood hero was the vice columnist behind Dear Constance. So Alex sees an ad for Dear Constance and impulsively applies, figures what the heck, against all odds she gets the job. And then the threatening letters start arriving. Alex needs to figure out who's behind these letters and what they want before she ends up like Dear Constance. Also made me think of the Book of Cold Cases. This one starts with a murder in 1977 in an Oregon community. It's nicknamed the Lady Killer Murders. 2 seemingly unrelated murders are found to have used the same murder weapon. A local socialite was seen near the scene the night of the murder, so she's questioned and accused, but ultimately acquitted. Flash forward years later, main character Shea Collins runs a true crime website called the Book of Cold Cases, and Shea meets the woman who had been acquitted of the Lady Killer Murders. The woman agrees to be interviewed and invites Shea over to her house, and things get weird from there.
Our Beautiful Boys by Samir Pandaya, a work of general fiction that will be hitting the shelves on the 18th. This is a book about class, identity, and friendships. A football victory is followed by an ill-fated party at which a classmate is hospitalized, hurt badly and hospitalized, and the course of the future is changed for 3 young all-star athletes. The conflicts all arise as the parents are left wondering, how well do I really know my son? As the whole community is looking into exactly what happened and how this classmate was hurt so badly. Samir Pandaya, also the author of Members Only, which is about a young man who joins a tennis club, and he's an excellent tennis player. His skin is brown, and that just has a ripple effect on his life, and leaves him asking a lot of questions. And then Frederick Bachman's Beartown, that is a hockey team, hockey star. There's violence, which divides the community. The hockey star commits an act of violence. The community, who's loyal, what's moral, who needs to do what. It explores those similar themes as Our Beautiful Boys. All right, now, The Four Queens of Crime by Roseanne Limoncelli. Historical mystery. It's out on the 11th of March. This book takes place in London, 1938. Our protagonist, Lillian Wiles, along with Agatha Christie, Dorothy Sayers, Nigayo Marsh, and Marjorie Allingham, who's chuckling? Hang in there, this gets better, okay? I love that you recognize those names. They are determined to find a killer. The Four Queens of Crime are hosting a fundraiser to help prepare for the war. The elites of London are all in attendance. And in the morning, the host, Sir Henry Heathcote himself, is found dead. Lillian calls in help from Scotland Yard, and they discover there's a cluster of suspects. So they recruit all 4 queens of crime fiction to sort through their mess. This is a debut novel, so there is no previous work. But let me jump ahead to The Queens of Crime. This will be released on the 17th of February by Marie Benedict. This novel is led by Dorothy Sayers with Agatha Christie, Gail Marsh, Marjorie Allingham, and Emma Orczy. These queens of crime are brought together to solve a mystery torn from the pages of their own novels. What a coincidence. That's fascinating, right? The Last Word is mystery fiction by Ellie Griffiths, and that one is a local author turns up dead, and Natalka and Edwin are the protagonists, and they are on the case. That is the 4th in the Harbinger Cower mystery series for that author.
That sounds like a song.
Yes.
We sing?
Not me.
Earworm with that title.
The latest from Cleveland native John Scalzi. One day, suddenly, without any explanation, the moon as we know it is replaced with a giant orb of cheese.
It's John Scalzi.
Through the length of an entire lunar cycle, from new moon to a spectacular but possibly final solar eclipse, we will follow multiple characters, school kids, scientists, billionaires, workers, preachers, and politicians as they confront our strange new world that they now live in, and the absurd, impossible moon that now hangs above all of their lives.
Must be Swiss cheese, you took it the whole.
Very Swiss, yes,
We'll have to
absolutely.
read it and find out. Okay. Reminding me of Scalzi's previous buddy sci-fi starter villain. Main character Charlie is a divorced substitute teacher squabbling over his house with his siblings, and he finds out he has inherited his estranged uncle's super villain business, complete with island volcano lair, okay? Charlie thinks this is his ticket out of the bland life and into some money, but man, these new venture capitalist villains, unionized dolphins, and hyper-intelligent talking spy cats are really complicated things, okay? And then last but not least, The Road to Roswell. Even-keeled Francine arrives in Roswell, New Mexico for her college roommate's UFO-themed wedding. She's rolling her eyes. She's so sick of all the silly alien talks and conspiracy theories, but gosh darn it, their weekend is getting ruined by an alien abduction before she knows it. The Last Visitor. On a more serious note, far out in the Atlantic Ocean lies an island full of trees, caves, some wildlife, a lighthouse that's been abandoned since 1971. A research team and a documentary filmmaker arrive on the island to explore the tangled up forests and the caves. Upon arrival, the filmmaker, the documentarian Quinn, starts filming, and she spots a corpse near a cove under some huge cliffs, okay? They go and look, and the corpse hasn't been there very long based on the decay. The research team is instantly on high alert. Fingers, ideas, theories, everyone's pointing fingers at each other. Theories are outlandish. Quinn and her crew are watching their every move, and they just need to survive 5 days until their boat ride home returns to get them, okay? Maybe think of The Lost House, a mesmerizing story of a young woman with a haunting past who returns to her ancestral home in Iceland to investigate a gruesome murder in her family. Also Ash Island. In this one, Detective Harry deals with corrupt colleagues, and a corpse is found just offshore Ash Island. This one's set in Australia.
And all the emotional reads, so I'm sorry, we're gonna need tissues for some of these. Promise Me Sunshine by Kara Bastone. It's coming out March 4th. It's a beautifully written, slow burn, friends to lovers romance filled with heart as two strangers come together to navigate grief, family, and friends, and of course, love. When Lenny's best friend Lou passes away after battling cancer, Lenny is lost and no longer knows how to live anymore. Working a last resort babysitting gig, Lenny meets Miles, an uncle struggling to rebuild his relationship with his sister and niece. Can these two struggling strangers learn to rely on each other to help not just themselves, but each other in this story about losing it all, finding yourself, and potentially love again? Our first read-alike, In 5 Years by Rebecca Serrell. Oh my goodness, you will need the tissues for that one. That was one of my top reads the year it came out. It's fabulous. An emotional read that asks, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Main character lawyer Danny Cohan nailed the interview of her career and got engaged all in one night. But when she wakes up, she is 5 years in the future and her life looks much different. So after spending about an hour in this future, she goes back to sleep, wakes up again, and all is normal, but she is no longer the same. She will then go on an unforgettable journey over the next 5 years that reminds us of the power of loyalty, friendship, and the unpredictable nature of destiny. This one it deals with, like I said, loyalty, friendship, grief, romance. It's got a little bit of it all, but it is definitely one of those movies that's not one of those movies, one of those books that is going to tug at your heartstrings that demands to be finished. The next read-alike, Ellie Palmer's 4 Weekends and a Funeral. If you like the humor of the Promise Me Sunshine, then you'll like the humor of this one. A heartwarming romance filled with humor about a 30-year-old breast cancer survivor that attends her ex-boyfriend's funeral to find out that no one there knows he dumped her. So she's just playing along as the grieving girlfriend when she finds herself in over her head and is asked to pack up his apartment. She then has to pack up her ex's apartment with his prickly best friend Adam, and the two form a tenuous relationship filled with chemistry and tension as they struggle to essentially not have a relationship. It's been described as laugh out loud and an unexpected romance novel. So depending on what you like from Promise Me Sunshine, if you like the serious and emotional aspect, then In 5 Years, but if you like the humor aspect, 4 Weekends and a Funeral. Next we have The Trouble Up North by Travis Mulhauser. It's coming out March 11th. This one is going to be for fans of, if anyone in here has watched Yellowstone, the TV series, you're probably going to like this book. An atmospheric and haunting read set in northern Michigan about the Sawbrooks, a generational family of bootleggers and smugglers whose legacies are the hidden routes that flow in and out of Canada. However, the family is falling apart. The patriarch, Edward, is dying. His children have no interest in the family business, and money troubles are abounding. When Jewel, his younger daughter, commits a risky crime to save the family, everyone must come together in this engaging family story filled with heart and authentic characters with real problems. First read-alike, especially if you like the bootlegging aspect, is going to be Hanged Moon by Jeanette Walls, a historical fiction novel set in southern United States during the Prohibition. Sally Kincaid is a feisty and fearless young woman determined to reclaim her place in the family she was shunned from. It is an emotional and atmospheric novel, and she will navigate secrets, scandal, and danger in order to succeed as a bootlegger. The next read-alike, this is if you like more of a family aspect, Long Island Compromise by Taffy Broadesser. I said that correctly. It is a bit of a doorstop of a book, but it does sound like a great read. Spanning the entirety of one family's history and their struggle to heal from traumas of the past. This is a novel filled with struggle and brimming with well-developed, authentic characters. When Carl Fletcher is kidnapped and returned home in the 1980s, life moves on for his wealthy family. But nearly 40 years later, Carl is still healing, his wife is stuck, and his 3 grown children have fallen into the same vicious cycle. In this candid novel about wealth, survival, trauma, and surprisingly surviving it all with a humorous tone.
Rooms for Vanishing. This description is not going to match this title at all, so bear with me. This promises to be a family epic about the separation of a Jewish family from Vienna, exploring the weight and twists of grief. Moving across decades, this novel follows the lone alternates who are each certain that they are the sole survivors of this family. Sonia, the daughter, in search of her husband. Fania, the mother, who's meeting her doppelganger. Moses, the son, who is haunted by the loss of his best friend until he returns to Prague to make peace. And Arnold, the father, who receives a letter from Sonia but doesn't believe it to be true. Reviews say it is beautifully written with emotional intensity and explores many life's questions. Read likes for this one. I chose nonfiction, Bad Jew, A Family's Quest. This one is emotional and introspective. The author writes about a variety of travels and experiences with his own family stemming from the Holocaust and learning more about his family. On the fiction side, it made me think of the Burgess Boys, to get away from the Holocaust theme, but that family intensity. In this one, haunted by a freak accident from their childhood, the Burgess brothers leave their hometown in Maine as soon as they can. They're very young. Years later, as adults, their sister calls them home to help her and her son who is struggling. Their reunion resurfaces long buried tensions and hopefully changes things for the future. Saltwater. This one takes place starting in 1992. Let me just start over in case they chop it, because I'm getting ahead of myself in my notes. In 1992, Sarah Lingate is found dead near the Bonnley Cliffs of Capri. She leaves behind her 3-year-old daughter, Helen, without a mother. Sarah's death is ruled an accident. Local old money family, the Lingates, can't escape rumors of foul play and interfering with Sarah's accident. The family still vacation in Capri every summer and maintain their innocence until the 30th anniversary of Sarah's death. There will be a surprise waiting for the Lingates on vacation. Made me think of Lucy's Follies, the guest list, which is a wedding celebration turned deadly on an island off the coast of Ireland with an entertaining and mysterious cast of characters. Also made me think of The Heiress. This one takes place in North Carolina. The neighborhood's richest and most notorious widow dies and leaves everything to her son, Cam. Cam surprises the family, turns down the house, turns down the fortune, and leaves for a quiet life in Colorado. In Colorado, eventually Cam gets married, and he and his new wife come back to North Carolina for a different family funeral. The wife there starts to untangle the family drama and the mystery of Cam's mother. She's very interested in finding out what happened.
Stone Angels by Helena Rowe is a work of general fiction that will be out on the 4th of March. This is takes place current time, Seoul, Korea. Our protagonist is Angelina Lee. Angelina embarks on a journey to Korea in an attempt to discover the real reason for her mother's recent suicide. The secrets she uncovers sends her across oceans and continents as she experiences the loss, grief, and healing. This is Helena Rowe has written before. Her previous book, though, was a memoir. It wasn't fiction. And so this is her debut work of fiction. Read likes for Stone Angels may be Nancy Kim's The Last Story of Mina Lee. And that is a story of a young woman who finds her mother dead, and it leads her to dig into her mother's past and she finds things that she didn't know, like her mother Mina was a war orphan, and she was in the United States without proper documentation. And also Kim Young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-jung. This is a story of, it is a psychological story, a psychological profile of the impact of rigid misogyny on this young, spirited woman, Kim.
Another one for all the sci-fi fans. Welcome to Fair Weather. It's Her Majesty's most luxurious interstellar passenger line. Travel spacecraft, you know. Room and board are included, and new bodies are provided upon request. If between bodies and lifetimes, your mind will be carefully preserved and protected in the library. On the top deck, Dorothy Gentleman wakes up in a body that is not hers. Someone is found murdered. Dorothy is one of the ship's detectives and swiftly finds that someone is not only killing bodies, but deleting minds. Dorothy needs to find the sneaky mastermind who is to blame before the previously peaceful ship changes into something very dangerous. For those futuristic fans in need of some introspective, made me think of a song for the Wild Built. This one starts with the robots of Pangaea gaining self-awareness and leaving society and retreating into the wildness. Years later, the life of a T-monk is upended by a robot returning, checking in on the people, and seen to ask, what do people need? A lot. He keeps asking all the people, what do people need? This beloved book and its sequel explore life themes about wanting and peace. On a lighter note, the In-Between bookstore, main character Darby is down on his luck. He moves back to a small town in Illinois, where he grew up. He left it behind. He happens upon an enchanting magical bookstore which transports him back to meet his teenage self, offering the chance of a lifetime to examine his life and perhaps begin anew.
Dream Count by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a work of literary fiction. It will be released on the 4th of March. It takes place during the COVID pandemic in this country. The protagonist is Chiamanka. Chiamanka grapples with her past loves, her choices, and her regrets while she has so much time to reflect during the pandemic. At the same time, her best friend Zikora finds herself betrayed and brokenhearted. Omilogar, her cousin, is wealthy, but questions how well she really knows herself. And Kadiatu, the housekeeper, is a single mom facing incredible hardship. And we're going to get glimpses of the lives of each of these women, their connecting piece being their connection to Chiamanka. Poignant observations of the human heart, happiness, love, mother-daughter relationship, and choices in this interconnected world, which often feels very disconnected. Reminders that we are connected. Americana is her previous novel, and it is about the love and race centered around a young Nigerian couple who are facing the challenges. She is in America doing very well. He stays behind for a while, and his life doesn't take off as well. But he can't come here, so they're trying to work out how that's going to happen. And released today. Which one of you's on hold for it? Nobody? Oh, I thought for sure it would be in this room.
I read Americana.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. 3 Days in June by Ann Tyler. That comes out today. And this is a sensitive reflection on the joys and heartbreak of love, marriage, and family life. There's also nifty mother-daughter piece in there.
You did a great job with the name.
Yes.
Oh, Chimamanda?
Yeah.
I practice.
Okay, so now we're starting into the nonfiction releases for March. The Lost Trees of Willow Avenue by Mike Tidwell. It's coming out on the 25th. During 2023, Tidwell documents a riveting year-long story of climate change and true stories on the urban block within Washington, D.C. in which he resides. So it's a very close to home story. Described as a love letter to magnificent oaks and other trees that are dying as a result of record heat waves and bizarre weather, Tidwell details the neighborhood's battle to combat climate change from various perspectives, such as a midwife who builds geothermal energy systems, a local congressman, and a Chinese-American climate scientist that wants to help save the world's dying trees one city block at a time. So it's just an interesting year of research, based on one location in which he lives. The first read-alike is The Backyard Bird Chronicles by Amy Tan. It has been on like the bestsellers list for forever. Written and illustrated by her. It is another localized read about nature and the beauty around us by author Amy Tan, and she takes readers on a year-long birding journey within her own backyard. After growing overwhelmed with the state of the world and social media in 2016, she found solace within her own space, taking the time to connect to nature while journaling and asking thoughtful questions while creating beautiful and intricate illustrations of the birds she admired. So it's another like localized backyard read over the place of 1 year. The next read-alike, The World as We Knew It, Dispatches from a Changing Climate, edited by Amy Brady. This features essays from a lot of well-known authors. 19 leading literary writers from around the world come together in this riveting anthology to offer haunting, first-person reflections on how climate change has altered their own lives, from Antarctica to Australia to the United States. With essays by Lydia Millett, Kim Stanley Robinson, Omar El Akkad, and so many more, these writers contemplate drought, global warming, coral reef destruction, and more consequences of climate change in this intimate portrait of our ever-changing world. So Amy Tan, that one is if you like the more localized community read, and then The World as We Knew It is if you wanted more of the climate change aspect of The Lost Trees of Willow Avenue. Next, we have Cellar Rat, I'm hilarious, by Hannah Sellinger. It's out on March 25th. It's considered a culinary bio or a memoir. In this memoir, Sellinger gives an honest and raw account of what it looks like to work your way up in the restaurant industry from behind the scenes, to server, to sommelier at some of the most famed dining institutions, all while working with acclaimed chefs such as David Chang, Bobby Flay, and many others. It's an emotional journey beginning with her gritty hometown pub and ending with her serving celebrities. Readers will realize that working in the restaurant industry is not for the faint of heart, and sometimes you do have to walk away from a career that no longer serves you. Our first read-alike that it made me think of was Down and Out in Paradise, The Life of Anthony Bourdain, just because he is one of the most well-known people within the restaurant world. So it is the first book to tell his full story based on extensive interviews with those who knew the real story behind him. And it is described as gritty and well-researched. The biography begins in his childhood, and it goes all the way to 2018 when he did take his own life. So it is a whole biography about his whole life. And then we have the next read-alike, Eat a Peach by David Chang, which is one of the authors that she mentions in Cellar Rat. So in 2004, Chang opened a noodle restaurant, not expecting it to survive its first year. However, in the years that follow, Chang would become owner and chef of his own restaurant empire. The son of Korean immigrants, Chang's childhood was filled with isolation and loneliness, but despite that, his love of food and cooking would remain a constant source to help him battle depression, anxiety, and more in this honest and humble story of defying the odds. So all of these stories are going to kind of give you both their experience in the kitchen and their personal life and what led them down this road.
Taking Manhattan is a work documenting some U.S. history by Russell Shorto, be out on the 4th of March. If Russell Shorto's name sounds familiar, he wrote The Island at the Center of the World. That was a pretty big bestseller. Great book. And this is the riveting story in Taking Manhattan of the birth of New York City as a center of capitalism. The paradox of opportunity, subjugation, and displacement of its founding, and that continues today, is what he is going to be delving into. His work has been described as literary alchemy. He's an excellent writer. Books read like novels. I read The Island at the Center of the World. I think I've even read it twice. That focuses on the impact of the Dutch in the founding and making of America. And New York, New York by Oliver Allen is subtitled From the Great Harbor to the Financial Capital of the World. This is New York City with all of its paradoxical charms and ills. He doesn't leave any of it out.
Okay. This one is a bit of a complex one. So the We Tell Ourselves Stories by Alyssa Wilkinson. It's out March 11th. It's considered a literary bio, but it is kind of just also a nonfiction novel. So it is not necessarily a biography of Joan Didion. Did I say that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Of Joan Didion, but rather an examination of her influence within Hollywood and how it in turn impacted her life and writings. From magazine writer to novelist to film critic and screenwriter, her legacy and impact on Hollywood will be felt for generations. Readers will be captivated by this blend of biography and film and cultural history that critics are describing as sharp, elegant, and eye-opening, a crucial toolbox for understanding both Joan Didion and Hollywood. But all the reviews I read did just note that it's like a mixture of biography along with the cultural historical information. So it's not just fully her, it's like a 50-50. So if you're expecting that, just forewarn you. Our first read-alike is Didion and Babbitts by Lily Anolik. Hopefully I said that correctly. Journalist Lily details the lives of literary greats Joan Didion and Eve Babbitts, centering around their lives while living at 7406 Franklin Avenue. When a box of letters written by Eve to Joan were unearthed after Babbitt's death in 2021, a provocative and moving work was created based on Babbitts' observation in diary-like letters that are the key to understanding and unlocking the intricacies behind the mysterious Joan Didion. So it's just a personal reflection of her from someone that lived with her, experienced her, and wrote back and forth to her. The next read-alike is if you like more of the Hollywood and cultural aspect, The Women Who Built Hollywood by Susan Goldman Rubin. Dive into an electrifying world of Hollywood and the groundbreaking women who defied the odds and helped build Hollywood as we know it from the ground up. From Mary Pickford to Anna May Wong, in front of or behind the camera, designing costumes, all of that, Rubin creates a well-researched book that details the contributions of 12 amazing trailblazing women. Bear with me, hopefully I can say all these names right. Well-researched and accessible, A History of the World in 6 Plagues by Edna Bonham, coming out on March 3rd. It is by Princeton-trained historian who reveals the link between public health and systematic inequality from the cholera pandemic in the 1800s to the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s to sleeping sickness in Africa, all the way to modern-day COVID-19 pandemic. Bonham's examination of the epidemics within our history focuses on the populations and how they were affected by these outbreaks, the medical attention they received or didn't receive based on their racial, economic, and social divides. So less a history of the world in 6 plagues and more a history of how and why treatment was based on her location. The next read-alike, Pathogenesis, A History of the World in 8 plagues instead of 6. by Jonathan Kennedy. It is a provocative and well-researched account of how history has been shaped, not by humans, but by germs, that draws on the latest research within genetics, anthropology, archaeology, and economics to help explain 60,000 years of infectious diseases that have led humanity to where it is today. Next, read like Foreign Bodies by Simon Schama. An epic history of vulnerable humanity ranging from 18th century smallpox to modern day COVID and everything in between. Schama grips readers with an unforgettable cast of characters that tell their stories of vaccinating, inoculating, and creating life-saving breakthroughs, including the unsung hero Waldemar Haffkine, creator of the world's first mass production line of vaccines during the cholera and bubonic plague in British India.
And for our full circle moment, because I did start out with the blacklisted actress, if you'll remember. We're going to wrap it up with nonfiction Red Scare. Subtitle Blacklist Mccarthyism and the Making of Modern America. This is by Clay Risen and will be coming out on the 18th of March. Mr. Risen uses newly classified sources and documents. When he wrote the book, he described it as unprecedented degree of political hysteria. Social conservatives plus New Deal progressives plus the onset of the Cold War led to what we come to know as the Red Scare. Joseph McCarthy had a network of government officials and organizations systematically ruined thousands of lives in his deluded pursuit of communist conspiracies. Mr. Risen, I think it's here. Mr. Risen also wrote The Crowded Hour about Theodore Roosevelt and the Rough Riders, which is a good depiction of how things were at the dawn of the century that became known as the American century, the 1900s. Ike and McCarthy, Dwight Eisenhower's secret campaign against Joseph McCarthy, and another read-alike in The Shadow of Fear, America and the World in 1950. A country and a world in anxiety, uncertainty, and deep paranoia. We are closing this edition of Books in Focus. And Jenny is so graciously doing her best Van and White to make sure we call attention
Monday.
to the different day of the week during the month of March.
And at what time was that again?
At 3 p.m. But it's Monday, not Tuesday. We're going to shake up your world. That week, everything's going to be topsy-turvy. Thank you for coming. As always, lovely to spend time with you. Enjoy this beautiful day.